It's another mailbag edition of Locked On Guardians answering your questions. And why are the Cleveland Guardians betting favorites to win the American League pennant? Listen to find out on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started today. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And also, I'm going to say, we have your team covered every day over here at Locked On Guardians. That's Justin. I'm Jeff. We both have our Locked On gear on. We got a lot of questions. I've got some controversial takes coming up. I believe probably more in segment 2, so make sure to tune in for that. And without further ado, let's dive.
Let's dive into the questions. Absolutely. All right. First question is from, I love this Twitter handle, by the way, Spoonge Juice E. The E is capitalized. Spoonge Juice E. Given the timeline of the prospects and the current pitchers in the rotation, what realistically is the best rotation Cleveland might see this year? All right, Jeff. So given the timeline of certain pitchers, what is the best possible rotation Cleveland can see based on prospects? I'm assuming he's not going to advocate for any trades here because, I would say Corbin Burns.
Yeah,
I am contractually obligated to mention Corbin Burns at least twice a week, just so you all know. The Brewers are going to start sending me stuff too, not just Locked On. So
I think they'll actually be doing the opposite of sending you stuff if you're advocating that trade.
Saying
they're going to trade this stuff. They might give you a cease and desist.
Somebody will. All right. What's the best rotation you think Cleveland can roll out this year realistically? Let's just keep it internal.
So Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, Cal Quantrill, Aaron Civale, Zach Plesac. I'm kidding.
Boring.
Honestly, though, it's probably, I think the first 4 and then the 5th spot, Bibee is what I lean towards. Okay. So we're assuming health and everything. I guess the 5th spot would technically be Espino because I do still believe in the ceiling there. I don't know if that's realistic, but this seems like a situation where everyone's healthy and okay. And maybe in September, because he had a slow rollout to the year, you could have him as a 5th guy because you're helping build up innings. So I don't know if that's the most realistic, but it's basically Espino or Bibee for me in that 5th spot with those other 4 with, health being the key for all of those 4, as they've all missed time outside of Quantrill with health issues at various points in time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're saying realistically, I think I'm with you there. That's if everything comes back here, assuming health. Although, if we're assuming health, does Cody Morris factor into those plans?
No, just because if we're, again, assuming health, just make that the phrase of the day. I still think he is not the ceiling isn't quite as high as the big 3. And, Civale has shown signs of maybe there's a little bit more there. And, they obviously believed in him enough to pitch him in the playoffs. And on top of that, they're, if he has a great year, just forward thinking, you're eventually it makes him a very interesting trade asset. But I mean, Morris could push his way in, but it's like, even if you move out Civale, it's like, I still think it's on Bibee and Espino. It's not necessarily Morris for me. Not a knock on him, just those other guys are so good.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense for him to be in the bullpen this year, and just given how things are going, and he's already on the 40, and you have other guys to get on the 40 as well. Logan Allen, Espino. I'm not sure how I feel about doing. This would be my rotation, ideally, by the end of the year. Ideally, it would be, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's the normal 4 plus Tanner Bibee, the 5th, or in any particular order, really. I would love it if Tanner Bibee was the 3rd starter, right, instead of Cal Quantrill. That'd probably be more ideal. I don't know if they'll go that route, but if we are assuming health, and Civale is probably going to stick out the year. I think he just hasn't stayed healthy. So, I mean, that's a very bold prediction, right? If we're not assuming health, then we're just assuming talent-wise, let's assume Civale gets hurt. Let's assume Plesac punches a wall. I don't know. I would
Punches the
probably
ball while
say,
taking off his shirt. Combines it.
yeah, there you go. Takes off his shirt and then runs into the wall because he does his shirt over his head. I don't know. I would say it's going to be Bieber, McKenzie, Quantrill. I would say Bibee and then Allen. If you're removing the back two, I'd say because they have to get Allen on the 40 anyway, and I think he needs to prove that the hiccup in AAA was that just a hiccup. My only concern is if Williams is coming too fast and you can't avoid it. And like you said, Espino too. If Espino gets healthy, I'll say Espino and Allen in the back two. But if Espino doesn't get healthy enough, I'll say Allen. But we could see both this year. Allen. We could see. I think there's a world where we could see Allen, Espino, and Bibee this year if Allen gets healthy. I'm not saying all at the same time, but I'm saying throughout the year. You need a lot of starters.
Yeah, but I mean, they also still have Gaddis and Pilkington and Curry they're going to want to give some reps to. I don't think both Williams and Bibee make it. I think just due to 40-man imbalance concerns, I'd be surprised if they're adding, because you already have to add Espino and you have to add Allen. So I think then it's one of the other guys. I don't think they're going to add 4 starters with their logjam. And they also believe in giving guys opportunities. I mean, how many chances have we seen starters staying in that starter role for a few years of data? So I think that, if one of them make it, Bibee or Williams, the other is not.
Or Logan Allen is in Milwaukee because the Guardians traded for Corbin Burns. And this is a follow-up to it. He said, too, spoon juicy. If it's the same starting 5 throughout the entire season, how do you view that as an outcome? So is it a good thing if Cleveland ends the year with the 5 they have now, or is it a bad thing?
No, that means everyone was healthy. Everyone performed super well because you had to move on, even though you do have someone like Logan Allen who you're going to have. I mean, we saw last year, they have no problems adding a guy when they know they're going to have to add him anyways. So if you end with all 5, then that means all 5 performed well enough and stayed healthy enough. And then that means you enter this offseason where you're going to trade 2 of those 5 likely. You're going to probably look to move on from one of Civale and Plesac as they get more expensive. And then you're going to trade Bieber pretty much no matter what. So I think that's the best possible outcome. If we're running all 5 at the end of the year, then everyone was effective and healthy.
Yeah. Does that also mean that any of the prospects just did not do so well? They couldn't come up. You already have
There's
Pilkington.
So many guys.
There is. I mean, there's Pilkington. There's Civale. I mean, does Cantillo factor in? That's another question. If none of those guys end up making their debut this year, I mean, Gaddis and Curry and Pilkington already have pitched. And
I'm not saying they won't make a debut. I'm just saying that, if your 5-man roto is to say a 5-man roto and you get guys popping in for rest or for slight things here or there, then that's a really positive sign. I think again that has more to do with health and performance than anything that the younger guys do.
Do the Guardians win the division if that happens? If the same starting 5 now is healthy in April or in September together?
Yes, because then that means they were effective enough that they didn't have to go get one of their multitude of young guys. Because it would take 6 young players underperforming, if someone is bad to not have at least one guy to step in. So I think if that's the case, then you make it.
Fran Mills Eyebrow, our buddy Lamola on Twitter. We've already pretty much addressed this. I think we did it a couple episodes ago, and we've just talked about it on our own. But we could probably provide some updates, or at least maybe some new theories based on the happenings with the TV situation. What 3 players make the most sense for extensions this spring? What do you those extensions look like? Well, the TV thing does make a difference, right, Jeff? The TV. I think the fact that there's not a contract for TV beyond this year, or they might not even get their money this year, or they won't get all of it. I would say that we've said before that the 3 that make the most sense are Quan, Giménez, and McKenzie, and probably then order. I think the only one I think they maybe get one done. I think they get Quan done or Giménez done. I'd like to see him get Giménez done because he could go up a lot in arbitration, and he's getting close to arbitration, whereas Quan's got another couple of years to go, and he will not be as expensive through arbitration unless things change. So I would flip the order to Giménez has to be the most important one to get done. And then you got Quan and McKenzie. But I only think they get one done. I don't think they're going to get 3 of them done. I don't think they're going to get 2 of them done. And they can revisit the Quan one next year because of where he's at in the timeline. So Giménez and McKenzie, I think, make the most sense. And what was the Jason Kipnis one was one I brought up before, but he was a little bit older when he signed his, so I don't think it's going to be that way for Giménez. I think we're talking about $80 million or more for Giménez.
I mean, Giménez just keeps doing enough things, and now he's in the World Baseball Classic and kind of gained to show his skills even more. Part of me thinks that Giménez is just not going to happen. Like,
yeah, I agree.
After the year he had, he would be giving up so much money. Just bet on yourself. Think you can reproduce it. Hit free agency and go. Like, I think Giménez is, a little bit of I don't know if I want to say a pipe dream, but I just think that it is unlikely that it's going to happen.
I agree
in the grand scheme, because he's close to getting paid. He was, I believe, a relatively big bonus baby, so it's not like he had
million. Yeah.
It's not like he's someone who, like Quan, was significantly less. So I think it's Quan. I still think an underrated one is Trevor Stephan. After what he did a year ago with the general cost of relievers, as we saw in the open market, with him being a little bit older, having been a Rule 5 pick, if you feel like you can lock him into a cheap deal, it just increases his value exponentially, even if you decide to later on trade him. And I think, they've never been one to talk with prospects, but that'd be interesting to see if they would approach someone like Tanner Bibee, and that would be the first guy who is like the prospect that they give like one of those 8-year contracts to, because it's very clear that they like him nearly as much as we do. But speaking of things we like, let's talk about one of the fantastic sponsors on this show, and one of my personal favorites. And you should know what that means. When I say personal favorite, it is time for some Built Bar. And right now, their new mint brownie puff. That sounds amazing to me. I'm hoping they'll send me a sample. I might have to reach out and buy one soon. I'm currently all out. The other flavors of note: brownie batter puff, now gluten-free, double chocolate, new and improved, coconut marshmallow, salted caramel, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. All are fantastic. I love everything at Built Bar. I'm still sad I missed out on animal crackers when that came through. You don't want to miss out, though. So check out Built Bar. And if you don't feel like placing an order, I get it. You can go to Sam's Club or Walmart today. Go to the pharmacy section. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff at your nearest Walmart. Or you can get a 13-bar mixed box with brownie batter and churro flavors from Sam's Club. So go to either of those places. And if you do go to the website, remember to use that promo code LOCK15 to save 15%.
All right, back to the questions. Our friend Arthur on Twitter wants to know, do you foresee the Guardians making trades to clear up the shortstop glut, or will they let the Rule 5 draft work its roster clearing magic? Well, I think Rule 5 ahead for this year is not
pretty weak.
Quite. It's pretty weak. So the guys that are already on the roster are not going to be a problem. I don't think middle infield. Like, I'm trying to think who. I don't have the list up. And
Espino
eligibility is better than anybody.
Espino and Allen were the guys they have to add. And then it's like, how much, when we've talked, you buy into maybe Gabby Rodriguez coming in and forcing it. But other than that, there was not a whole lot of guys. The Latin American group wasn't great. The high school players, from the rest of the guys from that Espino class, and then the college guys from the Logan Allen class, it's like, you're not protecting Tanner Burns. You're not. Mason Hickman's going to be interesting, but he's one of those guys that could be like some of the guys they lost this year, if he continues to show a little bit more in the move to the pen. Maybe Mike Capri's, depending on how he performs. But yeah, it's not a group. I just go through like Juan Benjamin. It's like a relatively big name, if you know the Latin stuff, was probably the biggest guy in that 23 class, or that would be available in this class, or Jose Pastrano. Like those, I believe, are the two biggest names, and neither have really lit things up. And then after Espino, it's Yordis Valdez, Christian Cairo were the prep guys. Those hasn't gone well. It hasn't gone terrible, but it also, they're not on any top 35 list for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, Juan Benjamin is probably too low in the system to qualify at this point. I don't know if he'll break out enough to get there. Aaron Bracho is past, being a potential for that. So you're talking about guys that are already past eligible that could break back out.
Josh Wolf or Isaiah Green, right? Is Isaiah Green in as well, maybe? Or was he last year?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just looking at the 2023 Rule 5 guys. Like, it's just
Cade
not
Smith could be interesting.
I think Cade Smith to me either gets on the roster or he gets taken. He will not make it back if that's the case.
Or he's a Nick Miklajak, and it's not really.
Well, yeah, if he takes a step back again this year, which that would be disappointing. But there are a bunch of relievers: Trey Benton, Tanner Burns.
It's in like Luis Durango was another the Latin American Wilfredo Antunes. There we go. There's someone else who
that's a guy that would be. Yeah, I think you would see need to get added. I mean,
you might list him third behind the two pitchers right now in terms of this, but I would be shocked. You'd have to have a lot of guys really break out and perform well this year to add 4 guys. Like, I don't think there's going to be 4 additions at the end of the year.
No, they're not going to be in dire straits this year for adding Rule 5 backs. But I said this last offseason. I said there's no way they can end the year with Arias and Freeman and Giménez and Martinez and Rocchio and Tena and Rosario all on the 40. Well, Rosario will be gone at the end of the year, presumably. Look, if they, I don't want to get into this debate, but let's just say if, I'm not saying they're going to, you know who you are if you're listening to this. If for some reason Cleveland extends Amed Rosario, there's no way you're not trading one of those shortstop prospects at that point. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying either at the end of the year, Amed is off the 40-man roster because he's a free agent, or if they sign him, one of those guys has to get traded. So you'll have one less guy on the roster, possibly 2 at that point.
And like, just looking at the roster, it's like Bell, Amed, Zunino. Those 3 are gone.
They're all gone.
You had Espino, you had Antunes, you had Logan Allen, and then we see if Cade can have a breakout. But it's like, other than him, you're really betting on some big guys taking a step forward. I mentioned on the show, I don't know, maybe we'll kick this for later, but it's like, I think we can eventually look and maybe discuss like if there's a trade that makes sense. Because again, I go and I look at San Diego right now. San Diego has on roster resource Ruffin Odor as their backup infielder on a non-roster invitee. Jose Azucar and Adam Engel are their backups. They are paper thin in San Diego.
The starters are good, thankfully.
They're counting on Matt Carpenter in their outfield at age 37. Now, again, that won't stick once Tatis is healthy, but still, 37-year-old Matt Carpenter is an important part of their plan. So there are ways for them to maybe go and find an interesting, like San Francisco could maybe be an interesting partner. Just because, they really tried to get rid of 36-year-old Brandon Crawford. That didn't work out. I don't know if they have necessarily, I guess Mario Luciano is their shortstop of the future, but he's a bit far away, and
he's hurt right now.
Yeah,
he's hurt.
He is a shortstop, right?
But let's move on. We will do next week. Maybe next week we'll talk about trade possibilities to see how they can clear the 40-man roster. All right, our buddy Lindsay over at Locked On MLB Prospects. Make sure you're listening to that show after you listen to Locked On Guardians. Which college pitcher this year, you're going to love Jeff's take on this. Which college pitcher in this year's draft are y'all going to make into an absolute monster? And why is it Sean Sullivan from Wake Forest? So we're going to get into a little bit of draft talk right here. Jeff's going to go off.
I'm going to rant. It is absolutely, positively, 100% not Sean Sullivan. And you don't want to draft pitchers from Wake because Wake is a pitching factory. And you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It does. Cleveland targeted Florida for a reason. Those pitchers were underdeveloped. And they knew they could get more out of them. They target players that will be turned into monsters who have been, haven't gotten the right development, haven't been coached up. They maybe see a pitch or something mechanically. Wake Forest's pitching program is better than Kansas City's right now. Wake's pitching program is better than multiple major league teams. So when you get a guy from Wake, he's maxed or near maxed. And look what's happened. Ryan Cusick and Jared Schuster have both decreased in value. The Wake pitchers, they dominate because it's such a good developmental program, but then they get in the pros and it's like, other guys start passing them. So, Sullivan and these other guys are performing great in college. Rhett Lauder is someone who's probably Right now people project him in the top 20, but it's also interesting. Like Ryan Cusick went a lot later than people were saying he would go. Like there were people projecting he would go and just outside the top 10, he went to the 20s. Schuster was a little bit, he ended up being drafted, I think, a little higher than many expected. But I think in general, like people are catching on to this, and Cleveland won't touch a wake arm for that reason, I would think, because there's not that developmental room they love. So I don't think it's Sean Sullivan at all. And I'm not alone in this. I've seen at least one other draft person talk about, like, I wouldn't touch a wake arm because honestly, a good chunk of teams don't have, players are going to wake, pro players in the off season to work at that facility. It's turning into like the college version of Driveline. And yeah, it's not wake, and Cleveland, I would be shocked if they went for a wake guy personally. A fun one might be, I'm blanking on the pitcher from Rutgers. I haven't looked exactly at his numbers, but I feel like, a cold weather under the radar arm could be good. TJ Nichols at Arizona could be good because
he was a transfer, right?
Yeah. And Arizona is a terrible environment for pitchers. It's the same thing. Like I've been the high man on Kyle Bradish since he was at either New Mexico or New Mexico State. I'm sorry if you're a fan of one of those. I know they're rival schools, but it's like, if you can pitch in an environment where you are set up to fail, that is a sign to me that you're going to be successful. It's the opposite of my Jeff Hoffman corollary, which is, if you're in a situation where you should dominate and you don't, that's a big old red flag. So if you're in an environment where you should not dominate and you are, you need to pay attention. And Arizona and New Mexico are two places that are just terrible to pitch in. It's also, listen, Joe Lampe can totally prove me wrong. I bet he will prove me wrong. The more I watch him, the more I like him. But am I schoolist? I think I am. I think I'm a little schoolist against Arizona when it comes to hitters. So I'll put that out there. I got to look and kind of dive into some more of these fun names and performers and see who is that pitcher in the Northeast who's going to be like Austin Peterson was for me a year ago, where I put it together. And the nice thing about Tanner Hall, I think, is it Mazzata is the guy I was talking about beforehand, the other
Southern
Miss guy. There's a few ones that stand out. I'm looking forward to getting like 2 more weeks of data in and then really kind of diving into this. But yeah, I would say the opposite of Lindsay here, that wake is a no-go.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm kind of with you there. And I like watching Wake Forest. They've got a ton of great players on that roster. And to be fair, you're not saying like, oh, these aren't good pitchers. They are good pitchers. It's just there's no juice left to squeeze out of them when they get to the pros. Like, you're not taking a guy that has good stuff in college and like all of a sudden he is a freak. You're talking about guys, like you said, it's like Driveline. Guys are going there. Wake Forest rotation is absolutely loaded. If you want, and by the way, if you want us to talk more about college baseball, we absolutely will. Jeff laps my knowledge and all this stuff, but as the year goes on,
would love to talk Kyle Teal for our listener Aaron.
Yeah,
because Kyle Teal is I know he's a Virginia guy, but he struck out 2 times so far in 50 plate appearances. You want to see a Guardians type? Guardians type.
But just look at the colleges that Cleveland has drafted from. Like, okay, Logan Allen, FIU, not a huge program. I guess
Auburn is not a. It's all right for baseball, but it's not huge. It's not like a
competition wise, it's good.
Yeah, but it's not a king of the SEC.
Right. Ole Miss, same thing.
Ole Miss is pretty solid.
Carolina has gotten better, but like
Florida State has been an utter disappointment.
Yeah, Florida, like you said.
Yeah, Oklahoma State. They had like 3 transfers, and nobody. Justin Campbell didn't gain like hardly any velocity in school. Like no one should. That's why, honestly, you want to know who the sleeper is? We had talked about this off air. I forgot to mention. It's Jerron Watts Brown, who was great on the Cape. Has 4 pitches, good secondary offerings, plus athlete.
He's huge.
And he's has all the tools, and he's at Oklahoma State that the Guardians have drafted from. That is not always the best at maximizing tools. This is going to get me in trouble someday, but. He is exactly their type, and they have no problem with a guy who's had a bad junior year.
Yeah, they definitely have done that before. Just look at the high school pitchers they took this year. It took Javier Santos Tejada and Gio Rivera, like community college guys. Those guys are developmental arms. They weren't pitching somewhere that has already, gotten them to that level. Georgia, Ryan Webb. Georgia's sent some guys into the draft, but
Derek
they
Lewis
haven't.
5th highest WAR all time.
Right. So it's not like they've produced a lot of great pitchers. So yeah, Cleveland targets guys that are not maxed out in college. That's not to say they won't make those picks. I mean, if Cleveland feels like there is something to be added, they will absolutely do it. Maybe we don't see it. I don't know. But they're not going to do it based on that. I think we both agree Tanner Hall from Southern Miss winds up being the comp round pick for sure.
And that's the Cardinals taken.
That's true. The Cardinals have been in years
you and I both
past.
thought he reminds me in so many ways of
Ian Bedell. Yeah. Right. Well, I'm just glad Cleveland didn't take Michael McGreevy the 1 year. They did. That was the one place where the Cardinals screwed up. It looks pretty bad.
I still believe. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got more questions ahead for you just after this.
Yes. But first, we have to talk about one of our favorite sponsors. Those are the good friends over at FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season has passed us, as a matter of fact, and now we are getting closer and closer to the playoffs. And it's the perfect time to join America's #1 sportsbook because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use, and you can bet on anything imaginable. Again, we've been saying bet the over on the Guardians. It seems like everyone agrees with us. So go bet the over on the Guardians if that's your thing. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't mess your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So more college baseball? More college baseball?
No, we will again, if you want us to talk more college baseball, if you're interested in the draft, I know we'll definitely do that because obviously it would be a mistake not to have Jeff talk about the draft on here.
I did last year. It was the Wednesday show. Like segment 3 was always college. I don't know if people want to bring that back.
I think we should
discuss. It was always the third segment on Wednesday was like my chance. And the funny thing was my first one last year was one of our first YouTube videos. You can go in the feed and find it where I talk Oklahoma State. I talk about all those transfers and I talk about Justin Campbell. So you can go hear me discuss him before that year even began.
Not to brag. The other podcast I do, we had Peyton Battenfield on it last summer, and we were talking draft, and we mentioned Justin Campbell and talked about how he could be a future Guardian. So if we knew it, you knew it. So well, I think we can bring College Tuesdays back, to be honest, or Thursdays or Fridays, because Cleveland does not have a game on Thursday the first month of the season. So we could find a day to bring back college talk because we're going to need it when those days are off. But I'm going to be careful how I word this, but there is a sports betting site out there that is not FanDuel. We're not going to say who it is, but it's not FanDuel. They are the most popular pick to win the American League pennant right now at 24.6% of tickets. That is surprising. I don't know what the odds are. In FanDuel, last I checked, I think it was 2,300 to win the AL pennant for them. I'll check again real quick.
Yeah,
but
it's that thing too where it doesn't necessarily mean they're the favorites.
They're the most
popular,
popular,
the best odds. This is when you get into the nitty gritty and you're like, okay, the best risk to pay out is with Cleveland. They are a team that basically what we've been saying on the show with every single ad read, which is the totals don't represent what the metrics say. It doesn't represent what happened last year. And yes, it's going to be a harder road. The Twins, listen, the pitcher got the most starts for the Twins a year ago was Dylan Bundy. 3 other top 5 were not good, and they had health issues. The Twins are going to be a lot better. The White Sox will be better just by changing managers, and you no longer have that unbalanced schedule. So it's going to be a rougher road. But I think most of us also realize Cleveland's a better team, and they were a darn good team a year ago. And for anyone who doubted them, and they had a ton of doubters, and I kind of ran it on the show about all the excuses and that being junk. It's like they're a legitimate team, and they're better. And yeah.
I have a topic for next week for us to get into based off of this, but I just checked on FanDuel. They are it's plus 1,200 for the Guardians to win the AL pennant. I'm just very interested in people liking that the best. It's good odds, and I don't know. They should be an improved team, but you never know. We'll get into that next week. But I thought that was really interesting to see. Kind of blew my mind what a popular pick they were in some circles. Let's get back to the questions, though. Landon, what are your MVP and Cy Young predictions? So I wasn't sure, Landon, if is this Cleveland specific? Is this league specific? Is it who are Cleveland's candidates for these awards? Jeff, how do you want to approach this? You're just going to want to outright pick who you think is going to win these awards?
Like, if you're talking team, it's Jose and Shane, and we can or Class A, and then we can move on. I don't think there's a two. I mean, it's like on Giménez and J Ram, or Class A and Bieber. Your dark horse being McKenzie, and your dark horse hitter being like Bell. I think if you're talking whole league, and I just focus on the American League here because it's an American League show. It's like who's going to be the one to step forward in the Cy Young in terms of the pitching. Do you have anyone who you think would be the guy, or do you disagree with my quick assessment for Cleveland before I throw out mine?
No, it's just Bieber, McKenzie, and Class A are the only guys that would probably get votes. That's about it for pitching. Hitting wise, Jose and Bell. I mean, Giménez got down ballot MVP votes last year. I could see that again if he, if he proves last year is not a fluke and he does it again. I don't see how he doesn't. But I'm trying to think. There's really nobody else that would stand out for me. Josh Bell getting MVP votes in 2023 means a lot of good things for Cleveland, but it also means he likely is playing somewhere else in 2024.
I mean, I think he's likely playing somewhere else unless he has a truly terrible year. He's likely playing elsewhere. But I kind of feel like it's late, but I feel like he does.
All right.
Have a Cy Young. I don't know. Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who were you saying? I didn't hear you.
I was just saying Ohtani. I'm like, I don't know. He's got an MVP. He doesn't have a Cy Young yet. Feels like everything's building on him, getting more and more. So I guess he's my lazy American League. I'll say Cy Young and MVP. I'll just cut down on some time.
I think for sure he could win both. I would actually love if he won both. And the funny thing is, even if he wins both, the Angels are still not making the playoffs. Like, he could win the MVP and the Cy Young, and the Angels could miss the playoffs. Like, American League. Well, Carlos Rodon's already hurt. That's a shame. So not going to be a guy. Yeah, that's a curse. Kevin Gausman was pretty good last year.
He's got some balk issues with his movement. We'll see how that affects him.
How many votes can you get in 2 months on it? I mean, CC Sabathia got Cy Young votes when he got traded to the Brewers. So how many votes can Corbin Burns get from August and September when he's traded to Cleveland?
Like, I think it's going to be when he ends the year in Milwaukee, and then this is what's going to stink about this. So he's going to play in Milwaukee the whole year, and then we're going to have to wait for him to get traded before it's going to be all the ace pitchers on the trade market.
The Bieber thing.
Woodruff and Bieber and Burns all sitting there, and teams trying to play them off each other.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, that's why Cleveland just needs to go ahead and make the trade so that way they can recoup the value and they have two guys to market that way next year. I agree. So I don't know. I mean, CC Sabathia did get some Cy Young votes for his time with the Brewers, although that's because he was pitching it once every 3 days or on 3 days rest down the stretch there that year. That helped Cleveland get Michael Brantley. So yeah, I don't know. It's I think the American League is probably more wide open. The National League to me is I don't know. It's gonna be the same. It's gonna be the same
against Alcantara.
Yeah, Alcantara, take Burns out of the equation. No, Nola was good last year. Verlander's a Mets. Yeah. So could go anyways. We'll definitely have our predictions for everything.
I haven't done the full dive down, but it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure. The National League MVP is probably the one I'm the least convinced on. But moving through as we're going long time.
Yeah, this is about it for us today. That was all the questions. We've gone, we're allowed to go a little bit longer during mailbag shows. We were told we don't have any extra things for this week. I will repost the talk I did with Sully on the World Baseball Classic. So if you're into that and you haven't got a chance to listen to it, you can check out our feed on Saturday. I'll have that posted on our Locked On Guardians feed. The chat I did with Sully on the World Baseball Classic. make sure you check that out. Speaking of the WBC update, there was nobody playing today, like as there was something to report on, as the first game was over. It was between Italy and Cuba. There are some other games going. Japan and China, nobody played for Cleveland. But the Czech Republic and China are playing right now, and Martin Cervenka is playing for the Czech Republic, former Cleveland catching prospect. Yeah, he got taken in, was it the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft, or was it the actual Rule 5 draft? No, he was
minor league, right?
I think it was just I think what happened is San Francisco took him, and then San Francisco signed him, and then Baltimore like took him in the draft or something. I can't remember what happened, but it was an interesting setup. But Martin Cervenka, I'll just say this: when he was playing in Cleveland as a minor leaguer, it was him and Francisco Mejia as the two catchers, and we would ask coaches about Mejia, because obviously he was the top prospect at the time, and everybody was paying attention to him and his hitting streak, all that stuff. And the coaches would they'd give you your answer on Mejia, but it would be like really quick. Whenever they
coach's favorite.
Yeah, but if you asked about Martin Cervenka, the coaches would go on for 20 minutes about Martin Cervenka. They loved him, probably because he was a catcher and more of a future coach. But he's playing for the Czech Republic, who, by the way, all those guys have day jobs. They're teachers and firefighters and lawyers. I don't know. It's really interesting.
Cervenka was born in Prague in the Czech Republic.
He's an interesting guy. I'm rooting for him. Czech Republic, I don't think has a chance to win a World Baseball Classic game, but they're an interesting story just because nobody on their team is a professional player, I don't think, anymore. So, and then it's 6 a.m. on Friday if you're getting up early. Former Cleveland deep sleeper arm for a minute. Wasn't a sleeper for long because he never really did pan out. But there were a year or two there where he could have made himself a name. But his name is Xiao Xing Shang. He is starting for Chinese Taipei or Taiwan, as it were, at 6 a.m. against Italy, who won the other day. So that is it for our World Baseball Classic update for the week.
I want to throw one thing out there. I don't know. Had you realized that the catcher, whose name I don't want to butcher, who's on Chinese Taipei, did you know that he led Chinese Taipei in home runs last year?
Kang Kwan Giligila?
Yeah, he was the number one home run hitter in the Chinese Taipei division. So I'm coming at you with World Baseball Classic. I read that in the Athletic.
I'm just glad we're getting you in on this finally. Jeff is finally contributing to the World Baseball Classic update. I love it.
I never, I liked him when he was with the team. He was a consummate professional.
All right, well, Jeff's having some internet issues here at the end of the show.
Solid.
Yeah, you're just kind of cutting in and out, so we should probably just take it away from here and end the show. How we end the show every day. Make sure you're downloading, listening, rating, reviewing. Go back and watch the stuff from this week. The episode on the history of Cleveland's black players in baseball, going back in the Negro Leagues and in the American League. Very good stuff. Good research by Jeff. So WBC. Now we'll end it the way we normally do. Go Guardians, go.